You haven't subscribed to channel yet? Subscribe now. We have new stories every day. Thanks. The Amsterdam Experiment. It was supposed to be an ordinary vacation in Amsterdam. A little bit of sightseeing, some great food, and maybe even visiting a few museums. But as Sophie and Max strolled through the lively streets, past the brightly lit coffee shops and canals, they couldn't help but feel something was missing from their marriage. Their kids had grown up and moved out, leaving the house eerily quiet. They had been married for 23 years, and while their relationship was solid, something felt stale. On their second night in Amsterdam, after a few glasses of wine, Max casually brought up something that had been bubbling in the back of their minds. "Have you ever thought about trying something different in the bedroom?" Max asked, his voice casual but with a hint of curiosity. Sophie glanced at him, raising an eyebrow. "Spice things up how exactly? Are we talking about buying more candles or getting those fancy massage oils?" Max laughed nervously. "I was thinking more along the lines of maybe trying something new, something different." Sophie's eyes narrowed with playful suspicion. "Like what? Skydiving? Bungee jumping? Max, you're afraid of heights." He leaned in a little closer. "No, not like that. I mean something a little more adventurous in the bedroom. What if we tried, a threesome?" Sophie nearly choked on her drink. A threesome? She half laughed, half gasped. "Max, have you been watching too many French movies again?" He grinned sheepishly, but his eyes were serious. "I just thought maybe it could be fun. We're in Amsterdam, after all. It's a city of freedom, right? People try new things here." Sophie looked at him for a long moment, her mind racing. On the one hand, the idea seemed absurd, something from a movie or a TV show. On the other hand, they were in Amsterdam. And after all these years of marriage, the idea of trying something new, something unexpected, had a strange allure. The search begins. Surprisingly, Sophie didn't shut the idea down immediately. "Okay," she said slowly, "but only if we're both on the same page. No weird vibes, no jealousy, and if at any point it feels wrong, we stop. Deal?" Max's eyes lit up with excitement. Deal. So that night, they started looking into options, scrolling through apps and websites, nervously laughing at some of the profiles they came across. It was fun at first, bizarre, but fun. They couldn't believe they were actually considering this. Eventually, after a few days of browsing, they stumbled upon someone who seemed, well, perfect. A friend of a friend in the city had suggested a local artist, a woman named Claire who was open-minded and experienced. "I can't believe we're actually going to do this," Sophie muttered, shaking her head as they finalized the plans. "I know," Max said, a mix of excitement and nervousness in his voice. "It's kind of wild, right?" Sophie sighed, trying to keep her cool. "Let's just see what happens. If it feels weird, we can always stop." The night arrived. Claire was supposed to come over in an hour. The room was dimly lit, candles placed strategically around the space to create an ambience that screamed romantic and adventurous. But also, we're trying really hard to act like this is normal. Max and Sophie sat on the bed, nerves building. As the minutes ticked by, the mood became increasingly tense. And then, out of nowhere, Sophie stood up abruptly. "I can't do this," she blurted out. Max blinked, confused. "Wait, what? What do you mean you can't do this? You were on board with this like 5 minutes ago." Sophie began pacing around the room. I know. But now that we're here, waiting for her to arrive, it just feels weird. Wrong. Like asterisk, what the hell are we doing asterisk?" Max sighed, trying to stay calm. "We're just trying something new, like we talked about." Sophie turned on him, her hands on her hips. "You think this is normal? Bringing another woman into our bed? I don't even know if I want to share my Netflix password with you sometimes, let alone share this." Max chuckled awkwardly. "It's just an experiment. No one's forcing us." "No, Max," Sophie interrupted, her voice rising. "This isn't just an experiment. This is crossing a line. A big weird, awkward *line. And honestly, I'm starting to wonder why you're so comfortable with the idea in the first place. Max's eyes widened. What? You're the one who agreed to this. Why is this such a bad idea? Because, Sophie snapped, you were asterisk when asterisk to return. I mean, you were practically planning the whole thing like a military operation. The lighting, the playlist? You picked out a playlist for this. Wait a minute, Max said, his voice defensive now. You were on board too. Don't act like you didn't spend hours picking out those candles. You were making this just as much of a thing as I was. Sophie threw her hands up. I was trying to be adventurous, but this is just asterisk dirty asterisk. I can't believe we even considered it. I feel gross. Max stared at her, frustration and confusion clouding his face. Gross? You're the one, Bo. Before he could finish, there was a knock at the door. Both of them froze. Is that her? Sophie whispered, her eyes wide with panic. Max hesitated, glancing between Sophie and the door. Yeah, I think so. Sophie's face twisted with horror. Nope. Absolutely not. We're not doing this. Not tonight. Not ever. Max sighed in defeat. Okay. I'll tell her we changed our minds. He walked to the door, opened it slightly, and awkwardly apologized to Claire, who had been standing there with a small smile and a bottle of wine. Yeah, so, change of plans. We're just not feeling it tonight, Max mumbled, red-faced. Claire, to her credit, smiled understandingly. No worries. It happens more than you think. Take care. She waved goodbye and walked away, leaving Max to shut the door with a deep exhale. He turned to Sophie, who was sitting on the edge of the bed, looking embarrassed and frustrated. Well, he said, rubbing his neck, that was something. Yeah, Sophie replied quietly. Something. After that night, something shifted between Sophie and Max. It was subtle at first, like a shadow that lingered in the corners of their relationship. The intimacy they once shared seemed to wither, replaced by awkward silences and half-hearted attempts at normalcy. They started sleeping in separate beds after the Amsterdam trip, initially as a joke. Oh, just taking a break from each other, Sophie had said, laughing awkwardly. But soon, it became their new reality. What was once a shared bed and shared moments of intimacy turned into separate rooms, separate routines. They felt more like roommates than partners. It was as if that night had opened up something neither of them could close again. They didn't fight about it. They didn't even talk about it. But whatever spark had been left in their relationship had quietly died, and they both seemed too tired to reignite it. Years passed, and the kids grew up, leaving for college and starting their own lives. Sophie and Max stayed together out of routine, but the intimacy, the connection they once had, was long gone. They lived in the same house, but it felt more like they were just two people occupying the same space. Occasionally, one of them would make a joke about that Amsterdam night, but it always fell flat, the humor masked by an unspoken truth. And so they continued, two people who had once been in love, now living like brother and sister in the same house, never quite able to figure out where everything went wrong, or perhaps too afraid to try. Laugh out loud 42. This had me cracking up. The playlist part killed me. Poor Max. That awkward ending is so relatable though, sometimes. It's best not to mess with a good thing. Been there too. Wow, the way the story turned after that night hit hard. Intimacy can be so fragile. It's sad, but real. Adventurous couple. My partner and I actually talked about trying something like this. But this story just made me rethink everything, Props for the humor. Real talk. This is hilarious and heartbreaking at the same time. Sometimes trying to be adventurous just highlights deeper issues. Well written. Please consider subscribing for more stories like this. And remember, as Truman said, good morning. And in case I don't see ya, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.